Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Tammy, I'm the Siberian Wind. If you've not been on my channel before, I do all kinds of quilting things and I do a lesson every couple of months or so that includes a free pattern. This is part of my free pattern series. If you want to go back and look at previous free patterns that I've issued, I've done and twisted Irish chain with a twist. We did here's the angle. We did cut and chiseled, and I have also issued out a jelly roll race pattern, but I didn't quite go into all the details. But this pattern will also be free. There is going to be a few stipulations with this pattern. It is slightly different than a lot of the other ones I've issued, and that's just because of how the shapes come to me. So this is not to do with, trying to get you guys to pay for anything, but I will be issuing a pay for pattern in addition to a free pattern. And once the series is over on September 26th, I will issue those patterns out, so you guys will have a link to a free pattern. You guys will also have a link to a purchase pattern, and it's a token purchase. It's not going to be super expensive or anything like that, but it does pay for the extra work that I'm going to have to put into it and giving the credit to Accuquilt. So I can't issue that pattern for free, but I will issue a similar version that will be 100% free. So the version that I'm going to be using for this series is going to be the paid for version, and that is just because that's how I'm going to do it. I can't apologize for that. This is the quilt that we are making, but we are making it in different colors. This is the Bauble Quilt. This is my original Bauble Quilt. I designed this with Northcott fabrics. I was attempting to make this pattern to hopefully sell it, get some kind of prize or something. It was some kind of competition. And so I used some Northcott fabrics. It was the first time I actually bought something like quilt shop quality fabrics, and so I bought the Northcott fabrics, designed this quilt, quilted it, and nothing happened. So I have hung on to it. I've actually reused this pattern quite a few times throughout the years, and I've always used it for baby quilts. And the reason being is that it does look like a ball or a bauble that you might see hanging on a Christmas tree. It also kind of has a yin-yang look to it, which gives it a little bit more of an adult feeling, so that it's not just a juvenile pattern, but it works really, really great for baby quilts. And it's super fast and easy to put together. I'm going to overcut on what I need for this pattern, so you guys will see all of that. Before I get into everything else, I do want to go say hi to everyone who has joined the chat. I know Linda stopped in early. We have Katie from Greenland Quilter. We've got Donnell Stitchery here. We've got Donna from Handmade by Ying with Donna. We've got a new commenter, Annette. I don't think I've seen you in my chat before, so welcome, welcome. Glad you are here. We also have Judy here as well. Good morning from Georgia, she said. Good morning to you. And we've got Jody Quilt Squirrel here as well. Good morning, Jody. And let's see. Katie, thank you. And Donna also said, y'all hit that thumbs up, like button to help Tammy out. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Donnell says, absolutely love that design hanging beside you. So this is the same thing that is. This one is hanging up kind of awkward. So these are the same pieces as what is in here. They are just not completely sewn together. So that is the biggest difference, is that they're just not sewn together. So I'm going to bring you guys over. Let me see if this is going to show very well. I think it will. We're going to work with it. I'm going to show you guys what I've done to get started for today. I am going to be working with 1 yard cuts of my fabrics. For your colors in your quilt, you will need more fabrics than you do need for like the backgrounds. So my grays in here are my backgrounds. So you will need less fabric for those. So I'm working with 6 1 yard cuts, And that's because I will have extra. I already know I'm going to have extra. I'm already planning on that. And that's okay. This is a family quilt. This is going to my nephew and his wife and for their new baby that's coming. Big sister, these were her colors. Hers were the purples and the navies. And then both of the little sisters are corals and navies. So that's what I'm going to be working with, is kind of a coral theme and navy. So we're going to continue that theme. All right, so I'm going to bring you guys down to the table. You guys are still going to be able to see me. All right, so in my 1 yard cut, I've already cut some of my fabrics, so I don't want you to get distracted. Some of these are already cut. They're not cut to the actual size of the pieces that we're using, but they are cut down. So I left one of my corals and one of my navies. Okay, all I have done to these fabrics, I have not even washed these. Normally, if you're a normal or a regular here on my channel, you know I wash everything. I pre-wash it. I don't do that on this quilt. There's no need to. Everything comes out beautifully. You don't have to put in that extra work. And when you are working with an Accuquilt die, you don't tend to have to do the extra unless you're worried about bleeding. So all I have done is I've taken the yardage, and this is, let me see if I can unfold it. There we go. All right, so you know, this is how it came off the bolt. So I have a fold at this end and I have my raw edges here. And for my simplicity, because I do tend to cut sitting down, I go ahead and fold everything in half one more time. So all I have done to this fabric is fold it in half that one more time. And same thing with my navy that's here. That's all I have done. So I've got my selvage edge, my original fold, and then my new fold, okay? So that's all the prep that you really have to do. Now, I could have probably done this entire quilt with half yard cuts, so I don't want you to think that you have to do it with full yard cuts. In the navy, we're not even going to use all of this. I think I have about half a yard left of the other navy that I've already cut. But this, you know, I just went ahead and got yards. It was just easier when I was at the store to go ahead and get yard cuts. So what our design consists of, and I'll show you guys this before we get into cutting any of this. And these, like I said, these are leftover pieces from Big Sister's quilt, okay? So this quilt is already in use, and it is a queen size quilt, and I just ended up with extra pieces. Okay, this is the basic layout of the block, and let me actually turn it. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure that it is right side up for you guys. There we go. Well, no, that's still sideways. All right, hang on. There we go. We're going the wrong direction. All right. So this is the basic layout of the quilt. So you're going to have a chisel that goes here and here. You're also going to have a chisel that goes here and here. And those chisels are bordered by navy fabrics. So you've got one navy color here and one navy color here. And for this chisel, you have the one navy here and then the other navy there. So it's a really simple design. All you are doing is doing a chisel with a triangle. So Terry has stopped in saying hi and thumbs up. Have a good live. Love the fabric colors. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. All right. So in order to get the yin-yang effect, one thing that you're going to have to pay attention to in cutting is the direction of your chisels. So you are going to want to pair your fabrics and decide what fabrics you're going to go what direction. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go and how to cut those properly. Let's see, Linda says that she was watching and the colors are beautiful. She got to go back to work, so she'll catch the replay. Absolutely, Linda. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So it's going to be really simple to put together. So you're putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chisels per block. This is the entirety of a block in this quilt. So you can definitely do this. I've seen this done, well, I've designed it to be also done where you could do white on white prints and then black on black prints, and then whatever accent color way you want to go with to throw in to these chisel pieces, or into these triangle pieces. You could absolutely do that. So the sky is the limit as far as your colors go. So what I'm going to do, when you cut with an Accuquilt cutter, you do want to cut your pieces a little bit larger. So I can't give you the exact measurements on that. That's why I have to charge for that pattern. So I can't give you the exact measurement of these chisels. So we are going to cut our fabrics 4 inches by 7 inches so that I have enough room to cut these pieces. So all of my chisel pieces, so all of my corals in this quilt are going to be cut 4 inches by 7 inches. And then all of my triangles are going to be cut at 4-inch squares. Okay. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can do this when you cut with an Accuquilt cutter. I don't want you to get hung up on the exact size of these chisels. Like I said, I will issue that pattern out. I think it's going to be $1 per pattern, so it's not going to be expensive to get the full pattern, but I do have to put a whole bunch of extra text, and I have to write it a certain way, so that I'm covering myself in issuing out the information that you guys need. There is it looks like the Accuquilt companion sets or bundles, die bundles. If you have a regular Go cutter or Go Big cutter, it does look like you can buy the die bundle for $200. It's like $199.99 for the 12-inch bundle, and it does look like it has the right size chisel for this, but I have not verified that it is that exact right size. So there's a possibility that you may not be able to get this chisel size unless you have a studio cutter. I do have a studio cutter, so that is where my die is coming from, but you guys will get the benefits of that because you guys will have a purchasable pattern. I will issue out a different pattern that is a slightly different size, and I will issue that out in EQ. I will do it at Electric Quilt 8 software, and I will issue it out with a comparable size. So it'll be with 2.5-inch strips is what I'm going to do. So you guys will still be able to cut this and put this together in a different size, but I can't give you these sizes because it's Accuquilt. Okay, so you will get a free pattern, but they're not going to be this exact size. So I don't want you to get hung up on the 4-inch by 7-inch strips that I'm cutting, because again, I can't give you these exact sizes, and I did not. These blocks I have not pressed, so please don't panic about my seams. Some of it's pressed, some of it's not. These are just, again, the leftover, the extras that I had hanging around from Big Sister's quilt. I didn't expect to have extras, but I do, and I'm kind of thankful now that I do because it gave me something to show you guys to work with. Alright, so I'm going to get these out of the way. And I'm going to show you a general technique. Now this is something that I recommend that you do if you are cutting with an Accuquilt cutter. So this is a studio die. This is what a studio die looks like. It has a wooden side to it, a completely wooden side, and you see the blade on the back side. So this blade is not sharp. This blade on the top side inside the foam is sharp, so you don't want to press too hard. Accuquilt Studio dies have a very thick foam base. You're supposed to be able to cut a whole lot more fabric than you can with a Go die. So these are my 2 dies for this quilt. Okay, if you do have a studio cutter and you want to get these dies, it is 50148 and 50149. It is chisel shapes 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. So 50148 and 50149 are these 2. And I know that not everybody can afford a studio cutter and or can't afford to have the space for a studio cutter. So I don't want you to get hung up on that. That is what is coming in the purchasable pattern. These are probably the kind of dies that you're used to seeing from Accuquilt. These are a Go or Go Baby die. This is my my ribbon die. Let's see, there we go. You guys can kind of see that die cut out in there. I've used this to make a breast cancer awareness quilt. But you can use this for any other ribbon die. If you do need the die number for this is 55355. So you know this is what a typical Go die looks like. It has a plastic shell. It's very plastic, but it does still have the foam, and it does still have the blades, just like a studio die does. But it is considerably thinner on the edge, so you don't have as much room. Accuquilt says you can cut about 6 layers of fabric with this. Sometimes, especially when the blades meet together, so like right here where you've got this blade here and this blade here coming together, and then right here as well, you may have a little bit of thread pickup. So there may be a little bit where your die kind of tries to eat your fabric, and it's not a permanent situation. It's not going to ruin your fabric, but sometimes you have to be a little careful pulling your fabric back off. Some people do in order to prevent that, they lay a piece of paper on the die before they put their fabric on top of that. I've seen that. I've done it. I feel like it takes away from how many layers of fabric you can cut, and I'm all about efficiency, so I don't tend to do that. But this is what a Go die looks like. So if you are able to get the chisels from the 12-inch companion set, if you do get those, this is kind of what your die will look like. It will be bigger than this. This will fit in a Go Baby. This is one of the smaller dies. When I issue out my double wedding ring quilt in January, I am using a Go double wedding ring die. So if you guys are interested in doing the double wedding ring quilt in January, or starting the double wedding ring temperature quilt in January, I am using the double wedding ring Go die. So it is the plastic back die. I do not have the studio die for that. It is the Go die. Okay. All right. So I'm going to set that aside. So actually I'm going to bring it back for just a second, and I'm actually going to bring back my triangle, the triangle, because it's a little bit easier to see than some of the others on this camera. So when you're looking at your die, I'm going to look for where I want my straight edges. Okay. I want my bias edges on the long side of this triangle. Let me see if I can keep it in camera, keep it in focus. So I want my bias edges here. So if I don't already know the measurements I need, I'm going to measure this side and this side, and I'm going to give myself some extra room. I don't want to measure those two sides and tell myself that's what size I want to cut. Giovanna, welcome in. She says, good evening, everyone. Well, thank you for joining the chat today. Thank you. All right, so when you're looking at a Go die, this is the studio die, so please don't panic about that. But when you're looking at a Go die, you want to make sure that you cut your fabric slightly larger than the shape that you need. And if there is a side that needs to be a square side, that needs to go along the grain line, you need to make note of that so you know exactly which way you want to cut your fabric. Okay, a lot of the dies that they have issued out, they do have those instructions. They didn't initially, but they have started issuing those instructions on every single die that they issue. So when you buy an Accuquilt die now, you're typically going to be given cutting instructions on how to cut your fabric. And they're going to give you oversized instructions. They may give you 1/4 of an inch larger. They may give you 1/2 of an inch larger. It just depends on the die, depends on you know, how you need to lay everything out to cut and to have that give room. For mine, I am cutting 4 by 4, 4 inches by 4 inches, and I'm cutting 4 inches by 7 inches. So that will give me plenty of fabric to lay on my dies. So when you cut for an Accuquilt cutter, the nice thing is, you know, we practice this so much. We practice cutting accurately. You know, everybody tells you you have to cut accurately. The nice thing with doing an Accuquilt die is that you don't have to be quite as accurate. So I've got my fabric laid out here, and you can see that I'm lining it up against, you know, a line here on my mat. Now I do have extra fabric. I don't have anywhere for it to go, so it is just kind of hanging out over here. But I am going to cut my fabric 7 inches, and I am going to line my ruler up with my 7-inch line on my mat. But I want you to notice one thing I'm not going to go do is, you guys may not be able to see it, I do apologize. Off camera, my fabric is lined up pretty closely against the edge of my mat, or the edge of my line. But you know what I'm not going to do? There is no need for me to go back in and square that up. Okay? I don't have to make sure that this is exactly 7 inches. I know my whole strip is basically 7 inches. It's a little over 7 inches. That's all. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do a whole lot of extra thinking. You don't have to do a lot of extra back and forth or anything like that. So I cut on the 7-inch line before, so now I'm going to cut on the 14. And my fabric did move a little bit, so it's not even on my 7-inch line. It's a little over. But you know what? That's okay, because it's not going to make a difference. These are rough cuts, and using an Accuquilt die cutter allows you to do rough cuts. So if you are struggling with cutting, if you are struggling with some accuracy when you're cutting, an Accuquilt saves you a lot of headache. You know, the closer you want to get to your die, and you know, the less waste, the more accurate you'll want to be in your rough cuts. But if you're not 100% accurate, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay? It's not. So I'm cutting 5 strips out of each of my yards just because that's what I can cut. And so 5 7-inch strips, so that's supposed to be 35 inches. And the lady who cut my fabric gave me a little bit extra. So I've had about 2-inch strips at least at the ends of my cuts. So I have a little bit of extra fabric. So I have scraps to work with. Okay. So I now have my 5 7-inch strips for that fabric. And I have actually done this with all 4 of my fabrics. Giovanna says, be right back. Absolutely, no worries. Alright, so all I have done with all of my fabrics is cut them into 7-inch strips. That's all my corals, okay? Now, to cut them into 4-inch strips, all I did was take my fabric and open it up. And look what I left, you guys. I left the selvage. You don't have to cut that off, okay? As long as from the selvage over, you're going to have the size that you decided you were going to cut, then you don't have to cut that any extra, okay? So I didn't. So I'm going to end up cutting these down, and let me actually grab one of the fabric that's going to pair with it, which is this fabric that I just cut. And I'm just going to grab 2 strips just because that's what I want to grab right now. And the one thing that you're going to want to make sure of is that your fabrics are right sides up, okay, or right sides down. They all need to be going the same direction. For the chisels, that's going to make a difference. When it comes to cutting those triangles, it won't make as much of a difference, but your chisels, it will. Okay? So I can go in and press these out, which I think I am going to do. So bear with me just a second. We're going to get the extra little wrinkles out of the way. So that way my fabric does lay flat, because I do want it to lay flat when I put it through the machine. But this is the same way you will cut with every single Accuquilt die. Is you just rough cut your fabric that you're going to cut on the die. You just rough cut it, and the rest is going to answer for itself. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to panic. You don't have to triple or quadruple check anything. You just rough cut so that you know what size fabric you're going to be putting into your machine, and that's it. That is it. Now, you can also fan fold on a lot of Accuquilt dies. That ribbon die, you can fan fold on it because it's going to come out the same direction either way. The triangles that we're going to be cutting, same thing. You can fold them either direction. It's not going to make a difference. So we don't necessarily have to worry about them being right sides up or right sides down with the triangles, but we do have to worry about it with the chisels. The chisels is the one thing that we do have to worry about. So what I'm doing is these are the 7-inch strips that I cut previously, or just cut, and we are cutting them down into 4-inch strips. So all of these pieces are coming out to be 7 inches by 4 inches. And that's going to give me plenty of room to cut this comfortably on the Accuquilt die, and I'm not going to have to panic about whether or not it's big enough or that I've got enough room or anything like that. So there will be some waste, and a lot of people do say, I don't like the waste with cutting with an Accuquilt. And I understand that. Here's my counter offer. When you cut with an Accuquilt die, I recommend that you have a bag handy and put your scrap pieces that are too small for you to use, put those in put those into like a pillowcase and sew it up, and you instantly have a dog bed. You can also make a cat bed the same way, just make a much smaller pillowcase. But you can stuff dog beds and stuff you can stuff any kind of pet that cuddles up like that. You can stuff any kind of pet bed with your cutoffs from your studio or your cutting area from your Accuquilt. So anything that is less than 1 inch big is what goes into my bag. So there's a lot of little bitty pieces in mine. But if you decide you don't want to use any of your leftovers, and you don't have anybody who does use the small leftovers, then you absolutely can put it into like a bag for stuffing. So make your own stuffing out of it. Alright, so now this last piece, I have about 3 inches before I get to selvage. If I thought that I could lay it down where the selvage pieces wouldn't show, I might try it, but I don't think I'm going to get that lucky with this, so I'm going to go ahead and set it off into my scraps. So out of my 1 yard, I have 2 strips of scraps, and I have 1 piece of scrap, okay? And that is even before cutting it with the studio cutter, okay? You're also going to do the same steps with your navies or your background fabrics. Okay, so my navies, I don't need them to be 7 inches. I only need them to be 4 inches, and I only need about 5 strips. So I cut 5 strips off of each of the coral fabrics. So I'm only going to cut 5 strips off of the navies. So there's no reason to go into all the extra cutting if you don't need to. So I will have leftover navy fabric for both of the navies. So there's one 4-inch strip, and it is over 4 inches because, again, I'm not going to square up the edge. There's no need to. So my rough cut edge from the store is just going to hang in there with me. Giovanna is asking how my hand is doing. Excellent question. My hand is actually doing fairly good. When I've taken the brace off, the problem with my wrist seems to be a little bit better than it was previously. However, it's still not completely healed, so I am going to still be in it for probably the whole 4 to 6 weeks that they said. I'm not looking forward to that part of it. It definitely slows me down, as you guys can tell. I've not been on top of everything like I normally would be. And part of that is just my hand slowing me down. But it's not hurting super bad. It's, occasionally itching because of the brace. And of course I'm taking off and, washing my arm and, airing out the brace, all of that kind of stuff, all the typical stuff you do with medical equipment. But yeah, it's healing. It's just really, really slow. And they did say that the problem may be a permanent problem either way, and I may end up needing surgery, so I'm still waiting on that second opinion to see whether or not that's going to go into play. So, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not hurting too bad. It's not itching too bad. It's just there. Alright, so the nice thing about cutting with an Accuquilt, we have officially done all the cutting I need to do, except for cutting a little bit more of my coral fabrics down. Now, I could leave them as full strips, and I will show you how that works as well. But with the coral fabrics, because I do have a direction that they need to go, it makes it more challenging. So that's why I went ahead and cut some of my corals down to the 4x7 size that I wanted, is so that way I can go ahead and get some cut. But this I could potentially leave as is, but I'm not going to. I will cut it down, but I'm just not going to cut it down yet. Giovanna says, just take it easy. I have an appointment with my doctor tomorrow for my right thumb as it hurts so bad. Oh no! Oh no! Well, at least you have an appointment. That's the good thing. Having an appointment to get it taken care of is the important thing. I probably waited too long. Well, I went in, and as soon as my physical therapist said, yeah, you probably need to go in, and then it took my doctor way too long to get me in for all the checks on it. So that's kind of my issue with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my studio cutter up, and you guys, the studio cutter is big. If you guys have never seen the Accuquilt Studio cutter, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit so you guys can see the full cutter. Nope, my camera does not go that far. I was gonna see if it does, and no, it just makes it bigger. Okay, so yeah, I can't do what I wanted to do. I'm sorry. I tried. So the studio cutter is fairly large. It is designed for commercial use. So if you are looking at getting into professional quilting and doing a lot of the same kinds of cuts, a studio cutter is probably what you want to go with. If you are just an at-home hanging out cutter or hanging out quilter, you probably do not need a studio cutter. I knew that I was going to be doing a lot of cutting and that I was going to be quilting for a while. My challenge is I wanted to make sure that I could cut literally anything I ever wanted to cut. So I wanted to make sure that if they came out with a different die, that I could use it. So any die that Accuquilt has put out, if you have a studio cutter, you can cut it. You do have to have an adapter. Sorry, mine's a little dusty. I see my dust. Oh my gosh, I see my dust. But any die that Accuquilt puts out, I can cut. So that is why I went with the Studio Cutter. And I did wait until Accuquilt came out with the Studio 2. The Studio 2 allowed me to be able to fold the arms up. I think all of them now do the fold up arms, so I don't think you can get a Studio Cutter that doesn't do this now. But originally when they issued it out, this is how it's set up. And it was stable like that. Like, you could not fold these big arms in and get it out of the way, and it took up a lot of extra room. Katie says that she wishes she could find a mini Accuquilt on this side of the pond. Yeah, you would need the Go Baby. The Go Baby is the miniature Accuquilt cutter, and so that ribbon die that I had will fit on the Go Baby. Any of the small dies that are 6 inches or smaller will fit on the Go Baby, and they're absolutely fantastic, and they're super portable. They're great if you're not going to cut a lot, or you're going to cut the small items. I wanted to be able to cut big items and cut as much of it as I wanted to, so I do have the large cutter. Let's see. Giovanna says, Katie, try to find a big shot. There's a bigger one that can use the dies of the Accuquilt. Ooh, that's exciting. That's exciting. All right. So, let me get my, okay, you guys, this is the cutting mat, the cutting plastic. Yeah, I don't think, they may not sell it over in Denmark. I don't know. This is my cutting plastic. You guys cannot see through it very well. Like, you can still see a little bit through it. I have used this so much that I have all my lines cut into it. But it still works just fine. You can, when you get the Accuquilt Studio Cutter, this die it's got a film on it or something that you have to peel off, but it is completely clear, completely see-through. So it is not, it is not, it is not this color. It is clear. But I have, I've cut a lot on it. Giovanna says that she has dies from the Big Shot here in Italy. That's awesome. Yeah, so if you guys can find like a comparable size die, you absolutely can do this that way as well. So with the Studio, one other thing that comes with it is your tray. This is the tray that you put your die on. And I'm going to put it where you guys can see it in camera. I've got to move my Studio Cutter to have a little bit of room so I don't hit my tripod. Sorry guys, I did not mean to move the camera. I meant to move the Studio Cutter, and I wasn't picking up and moving. I was shoving, so I apologize. Alright, so this is just the cutting tray, and this is going to go through the cutter, and it's going to hold your die as you go through the cutter. And if you want to use regular Go dies, there is an adapter. You just lay this in here. Your Go die goes on top of it, so that ribbon die that I had, wherever it's floating around at now, the ribbon die, I would put it on here before I put the plastic over the top of my fabric and feed it through. With the Studio dies, I don't have to use this, okay? So if you do get a Studio Cutter and you want the ability to use any of the dies, make sure that you get the Go die adapter. And it's thick, hard plastic, like acrylic or something. But you place it in the base of this in order to use your Go die. Alright, so when you use a Studio Cutter or a Go Cutter, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to cut the triangle first. And the reason that I'm going to do this is because I want to show you the difference in what you can do. So I'm going to try to keep my triangle this direction so you guys can kind of follow this a little bit better, okay? So my die is at an angle, but my triangle rough or straight of grain sides are out here, okay? So you can actually fan fold, and on the triangle you can fan fold, and you don't have to, you can put a whole lot of layers, okay? So I can press in just a hair and feel where that blade is. I don't recommend you press too hard because you don't want to cut your fingers, because you can. But you can press in, see where your blade is. And then I'm going to fold my fabric over back the opposite direction. And I'm going to make sure that I'm covering the blade edge over here at this end. And I'm just going to follow it back up. And I'm going to do the same thing coming back the opposite direction. I'm going to make sure that I can still feel kind of where that blade is. And I'm just layering this entire strip cut over the top of this triangle. Okay. So this is one way that you can cut on a studio die or a Go die or a Go Baby die. You can cut this way on all of them. Okay. So my fabric is now fan folded over the top. I'm going to hold it in place so I can keep it where it's going to go. But you guys, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 layers. You cannot cut that many on a Go cutter. I recommend not trying to cut more than 6. The recommendation is no more than 6. If you're cutting denim or fleece or flannel, I recommend cutting even less. But with this, I can cut this many layers. Okay, so I've layered my cutting plastic on top, and all I'm going to do is get it started. Like, I'm going to push it towards the roller. Giovanna says you can get the Big Shot kit quite cheap. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, so I'm going to stand up only because I am trying to cut 10 layers. And I do not have any hand strength to help get this started into the machine. There we go. So the more layers you try to cut, the more it is going to resist a little bit. But I'm going to pick this up and bring this over to you guys, so you guys on the camera can see what just came out of the cutter. Okay, so here's what I do because of my climate. With this dry climate, things stick to my cutting mat, so I slide my cutting mat off. Okay, so I'm just picking up the extra fabric, and here we go. We have 10 perfectly cut triangle pieces that are exactly what this die is supposed to cut. Okay. Studio 2, no, it is not electric. The only one that is electric is the Go Big Electric. The Go Big Electric is the only electric one. Yeah, I wish the Studio 2 was electric. I really do. It would be so fantastic if it was. But I will say I do tend to try to cut a lot of extra layers with it, so maybe it's probably a good idea that it's not. But yeah, so it is not electric, but it's not hard to feed through. I just try to feed more layers than I probably should. Okay, so I have a little bit of a fold in that piece of fabric, but if you can tell, this piece cut out just the same as all the rest of them. Okay, it was layered in there. It had a little bit of a fold in it, but it cut out beautifully, and it's going to be the exact right size. And the other thing that I really like about cutting with an Accuquilt, I'm going to flip it this way so you guys can see it on camera better. Look there. You have your dog ears already cut. You don't have to worry about where that 1/4 inch is. It's already taken care of for you. Okay? That is one of the nice things about the Accuquilt dies, is they do go ahead and cut those dog ears to help it make easier cuts. So this is all about making this easy to do. Can you cut this shape without using a Go or Go Baby or Studio? Absolutely. Can you cut it on a Cricut? Probably. I haven't tried that, but you probably can. I have cut fabric on my Cricut, but it's really messy. But you've got your dog ears. You don't have to worry about anything. This is going to perfectly match the chisel die that we're going to be cutting here in just a second. Giovanna says that she's got a butterfly die, which she's cut to send to Debbie. That's awesome. That fabric is beautiful. Thank you. This is kind of like got a paisley print to it in the glitter. It's like paisley and floral kind of. And it's not an exact match to what Big Sister had, but it's pretty close. So, you know, this is the fabric. It is a navy fabric, and it's a paisley floral print that's all glittery, all silver glitter. All right, so here's the other thing that I get a lot of feedback on, okay? And I've gotten feedback on this when I've done any Accuquilt cutting in the past, not just on my channel, because I really haven't done a lot of Accuquilt cutting here on the channel. So I want to go over this while we're here, okay? Look at how much extra fabric I have here. Look at how much extra fabric I have here at the end. And here's another triangle right here. So like I've got this entire strip, and I've got 4 triangles and 1 big piece. Extras, okay? Do I save that? Yes, I do. Fabric does not go to waste in my studio. Laura, welcome. She says, hi, Tammy and everyone. Welcome, welcome. I have been stuttering the last 3 days, guys. So if I start stuttering, or if I'm taking a lot more drinks of my soda or whatever, please just be patient with me. I almost was about to cancel today. I'm not feeling fantastic. And the stuttering, I don't know if it's because of why I'm not feeling fantastic or if it's a symptom. So I don't know which one it is. But if I start stuttering, you guys know I'm probably going to have to call it quits for the day. So we're trying not to. So part of this is a technique to avoid stuttering. That's what we're going with. I was using Jawbreakers last night as marbles. Yes, Giovanna, you're absolutely right. She says you can make half square triangles with it. You absolutely can. All right, so I'm going to show you something else that you can do, okay? Because this is the triangle die, not because this can all work on every single die, but because this is the triangle die, this is what I'm going to show you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and get my other navy, get 1 strip of it, and I'm going to go ahead and press out the creases. That way I don't have a whole lot of extra creases. Okay, so same thing as before. Here's my lines. I know you may not be able to see them on camera, but here's my lines, okay? And so I'm going to lay this across, and I just want to make sure that my selvage edge that I don't want to have in the quilt is off of that blade. And I'm just feeling for where that blade is, okay? So I've put just 1 layer. The rest of this is just going to hang out, okay? So I'm going to lay that across, lay my mat on top of it, roll it through, and it rolls through beautifully, especially when you're not cutting a whole lot of fabric, okay? And you don't have to bring it back to the same side every time. When I am cutting and I don't have a camera in front of me or like a whole bunch of people watching, when I get done on this other side, I swap to this other side and I feed my fabric back through, okay? So that is another nice thing, but I'm not going to do that for camera purposes, okay? So I've cut 1 set of triangles. That is all I've cut. They are not 60, they are 45. Yep, these are 45. Because here's your 90 degrees. Yep, so there's your 45. All those cuts in your mat, do you find slivers of it in your fabric? Nope, never have. Never have. Now, I will say this. When I had the original Go, because I did have the original Go and I had the Go Baby, sometimes those mats, they tend to be a little bit more rubbery. And I did find that sometimes the slivers would come off. They didn't end up in my fabric, but the slivers did kind of wear a little bit faster. This acrylic mat for this studio, it's designed for commercial cutting, so no. I've not found any plastic in anything ever. It's been beautiful. Laura says I have the Accuquilt Go Big Electric and I can cut 6 layers of cotton. How many layers will the studio cut? When I fed it through just a minute ago, what was it, guys? Was it 10? I think it was 10. And this is glitter fabric, so it's a little bit thicker. That's 4, 6, 8. Yeah, this was 10 layers. I have cut as many as 12 of just regular cotton. Walmart cotton, I can probably cut 14. And that's probably pushing it. I shouldn't do that, but I do. But yeah, you can cut a whole lot. Studio definitely cuts more than the Go Big Electric, but you do have the challenge that it is not electric. It's not going to help you any, so you have to do everything manually. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do on this second cut. So I've got this little left over here. I'm going to take my long edge where this piece came out of, and that's going on my long edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it on top of the die and feel where my blades are. And I do want to fan fold. I want to get a little bit of extra cutting in on this one, just because I can, just because you can push it a little bit. And this is conserving your fabric as much as probably possible with cutting with an Accuquilt cutter. It's not to say you can't find more creative ways to do this, but this is as creative as I tend to get, okay? I don't tend to push the cutter to do things it's not supposed to do, aside from cutting extra layers. But, you know, it is what it is. So this is just going to be 4 layers, and, I mean, it's going through beautifully. Can the Go Big Electric use the dies that the Studio does? If they are the Go dies, yes. If they are a Studio die, no. So if the die has, most of what you will find in your local quilt shop will be a Go die. It will have a green plastic backing to it. Where did I put that die guy? Oh, it's right here. It will have a green plastic die backing, okay? So this you can cut on the Go Big Electric. Anything that has this green plastic, you can cut on the Big Electric. This, you have to have a Studio. When they swap to the wood backing, you have to have the Studio. Yeah, no, the dies are the same, but they're not the same, Giovanna. So, between the Go and the Studio. So, the Go die, let me get this extra out of the way. I'll come back to it here in a second. All right, this is a Studio die. So you've got a big wooden base, and you've got a very thick foam mat, okay? As compared to a Go die, you are talking about almost a full ½ inch, guys. You're talking about 3/8 of an inch at least difference between the two dies on the size as far as thickness. So that's why a Studio is just a Studio die. If you have a Studio or Studio 2 cutter, you can cut anything. You can cut these, you can cut these. You have to have an adapter to cut these, but you can cut anything. If you have the Go or the Go Big or the Go Baby, as long as the die fits in the machine, then you can use any of the ones with the green plastic. That's how they differentiate the two. Yeah, right, Giovanna? They are the same in concept. But what they did when they did the Studio dies is they are a lot more sturdy. These dies are designed for home use. Home use being, I make 12 quilts a year, and Three of them this year are going to be the ribbon dye. Or I make 2 or 3 quilts a year, or maybe I make 4 or 5 quilts a year, and all of them are this dye. That's home use. Rob is here. Welcome in, Rob. He says, "Hey, Tammy and everyone, welcome." So that's what they classify as home use. So any of the go dyes are warranted for home use. These are not going to be warranted for commercial use. So let's say I cut 4 quilts with this. And maybe that 5th quilt that I go to cut, the blades bend, or too much fabric gets caught in it and you can't get it out, or the blade comes loose. I haven't had that happen, so don't shoot me, okay? But if the blades bend or come loose or something like that, it's not warranted for that kind of use. It's not warranted for commercial use. These, I will tell you right now, if Cotton Cuts, with the amount of fabric that they cut for all of those kits for everybody, if Cotton Cuts sent Accuquilt a request for a dye and designed all the blades, where they want them to cut an entire fat quarter and all the cuts that they need for that fat quarter for the entire quilt, they could use that and it will last. It's not going to destroy itself. These are designed for commercial use. So a business like Cotton Cuts or a local quilt shop, Helen says, Giovanna, good marketing, right? Right? But yeah, the studio dyes are designed for commercial. So if I wanted to make, let's say, 30 of these quilts a year, or let's just round it to 36 quilts of 36 of this quilt a year. That is 3 quilts a month. And I could cut all of that on this. It's warranted for that. Okay? It's warranted for me to make as many as I want to, and all of that. So it's not a big deal. Roughly how much are the dyes cost? How many do you get in a dye kit? That depends on the dye kit. So with the studio, I'm not aware of any dye kits. I'm honestly not. Now the Go and Go Big, there are now dye kits available, and I think there's 6 or 8 dyes per companion set, and they're $200 a set. They're not cheap. However, I will say this: if you are starting out and you want a lot of variety and you want to be able to do a lot of different things, a companion kit's not a bad idea. If they do have this in a Go cutter, a Go die, if they have this exact chisel, it is going to be in that 12-inch companion, but it runs $200. So you're getting a whole bunch of extra dies in addition to just getting this one. And I don't know if the triangle was in there. I did not look closely enough at it. Chloe was so sweet and sent me information on which one to look at. So this, I don't know if this chisel is available or not exactly, because I didn't get into it long enough to look at it. I've been running everywhere and doing everything. But if they do have it, it would be in the 12-inch companion. The dies look like the cutters we use at schools. Yeah, they absolutely do. I've seen some of them, and that's immediately what I thought of too. Giovanna says the Big Shot dies are steel roll dies and quite strong. I've used some for a long time and had no problems. Yeah. Well, marketing in the EU is a lot different than marketing here in the United States. And commercialism is a lot different there as well. So commercialism here does play into it probably, I'm thinking. But I will say this studio die set, let me do this while I've got you guys here. Bear with me. Let me go pull this particular die, 50148. And the Accuquilt website is a little slow on me right now. Alright, Studio Cutter Dies, Studio Rag. Okay, so a rag flower die is $130 right now. The 45 degree parallelogram that they've got is $75. Oh, this one. Okay, this one right here. This set is $110. Okay. So this chisel and the triangle that comes with it is $110. And let me see. Let me go see about the cutter and see what they're running right now on the Studio cutter. So that way you guys know, what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is currently on the Accuquilt website at $715 for the Studio cutter. And it comes with the cutter itself. It comes with the tray. And then the cutting plastic. It does not come with the adapter to cut go dies, so you do have to add that separately. So it's not a cheap investment. In order to get a Studio cutter, I've had this for years. I do not remember how much I paid. I think I did get it on sale, but I don't remember how much I paid. But the Go is definitely more affordable. But again, I can issue you guys out the purchase pattern, and it's going to be like I said, $1. It's not going to be expensive, in order to get you guys the full size pattern. All right, so on the one that I just sent through, they are the same size as the ones that I previously cut. However, I don't have a big triangle anywhere in the middle. Okay. So you can take your die, you can take your fabric and lay it one at a time over and get your cuts that way. And that will decrease how much waste you have. Because a lot of people, when they see you cut with an Accuquilt cutter, whether it is the Go Big, the Go Baby, any of this. Crystal, welcome in. She was just joined the chat today. Thank you. Anytime you are cutting with a die cutter, you're going to have a little bit of waste, and you can take the time and reduce the amount of waste that you are getting from your die, or you can just accept the amount of waste you're getting. That is entirely up to you guys, okay? Now, you can cut these by hand, but if you don't want to, that's what a cutter like this, a die cutter, is supposed to do. It's supposed to make your life a lot simpler. Alright, so now I've got, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. I've got 8 cuts already, and I have plenty of fabric, okay? So I can continue cutting this the way that I just did, or I can go ahead and start cutting it the fan fold way and end up with a little bit more waste. Because I have plenty of fabric, I'm not concerned about the waste, and all my waste will go into my scrap bin. So it doesn't quite matter to me that much, okay? So this is going to cut 6 layers. That's what I'm layering it up for right now. And what I'm doing is I'm just feeling again to make sure that I can feel where my blades are, and to make sure that my blades are going to be cutting into the fabric, okay? I don't want to cut off of the fabric, I want to cut into the fabric. And one thing about a lot of the dies is they are positioned, so the reason that the triangle is set this way is so that you can fold a square edge in, or feed a square edge into your cutter, and you don't have your blades going squarely against your roller. Because having them go squarely against the roller does not work out well. Alright? So there are our 6 more pieces. So we have cut 6 and then 8. So I actually cut 14 pieces on this strip set, and I only have a couple of triangles of waste, and that's only because I didn't want to take the time and do this the whole way, okay? So you do have two options. You can do this the whole way so you don't end up with any waste. Or you can fan fold. You will lose a little bit of your cutting, so you'll lose a little bit, but you get everything cut faster. Okay, so you have both options with a die cutter like this. Okay, does that make sense? Am I confusing anybody? If I'm confusing you, please let me know. Please let me know. All right. So here's the other die. Okay, this is the chisel. This is the one that creates this fantastic design that's behind me. Okay. Now, I am going to show you something we've got to pay attention to. So, in the design behind me, part of what creates this beautiful pattern, let's see, Giovanna says I'm very frugal. Even if I have a lot of fabric, I try not to make waste. Oh, this is not going waste. Anything I can get a 1-inch square out of, I'm going to get a 1-inch square out of. And then anything I can't is going to go into stuffing dog beds. So it's not going to waste because I will use it. But if you are less likely to use it, or you are less likely to want to use your smaller pieces, that might be a bigger concern. So it's up to you. It's absolutely up to you. All right, so with this pattern and with the way that this is cut, you are going to need you're going to need your 4 fabrics. Okay, let me actually pull my other 2 fabrics out. I don't have them prepped to feed through the machine, so we're not going to feed all of my 4 coral fabrics through the machine today, or not here on the live, not here on the video. But we are going to feed them through eventually, okay? So I will get them fed through. All right, so these 2 fabrics don't have as much contrast, and that's why I didn't use these 2 to start with. These 2 have more contrast between the 2. You can easily see it on the camera that these 2 are different. These 2 you really can't tell. So in order to make this pattern work, you need a dark fabric and a medium value that is along that same color line. And then you need a dark fabric and a medium value that is along that same color line. Okay? So in order to make these 2 chisels, you need to cut them one direction. They are both cut the same shape, same layout. You cannot fan fold these. You do not want to cut one right side up and then cut the other wrong side up. You do need to cut them both right side up, and these will be wrong side up, I believe. Let me see how the chisel's laid out. All right, yep. So your dark fabric is going to be your right side up material, and then your medium fabric is going to be your wrong side up material. Okay? So you can do this one of 2 ways. You can cut all of one fabric and then cut all of the other, or you can make them into pairs, however you want to do it. So my light fabric is going to be, or my lighter fabric is going to be my wrong side up fabric, so I'm going to go ahead and flip the whole stack. Okay, so I have 4 fabrics here, and I'm just going to lay them across to make sure that I have my entire shape covered, and I'm just feeling for the blade. I know about where to look. All right, so I am feeling the blade through there, okay? You guys can't see the blade, but I can feel it. All right, so those 4 fabrics are right sides down. And then I'm going to take 4 of my other fabrics and I'm going to put them right sides up. And so I'm going to be cutting 8 layers. You can cut as many layers as you feel comfortable cutting on your cutter. Okay, if you do not feel comfortable cutting 8 layers, don't cut 8 layers. That is as simple as it gets. And one of the things I do also like about using the studio cutter is I can leave my spare fabric on the mat as I roll everything through. Okay, so one thing with either the Go Cutter, the Go Baby, the Go Big, when you have these cutting mats, these the cutting mat for the Go system is more of a rubber material. These are a hard acrylic plastic. You do want to rotate them. Flip them over. Use both sides. You don't want to just continually cut on the same side repeatedly. You want to flip them over so that you get the most use out of them. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. Every so often, flip your mat. Make sure you're using the opposite side. Alright, so here's my blade. All I'm going to do is peel up the extra. Okay, so I had one little piece at the top that didn't want to catch. Alright, so with cutting the shape, I do have a leftover triangle, which is absolutely fine. It's going to go into my scrap bin. And here are my right side up dark chisels. And here are my matching medium chisels. Crystal is asking, good question. She says, do you go through cutting mats often when you cut so many layers? No, actually. Now on the Go and Go Baby and Go Big, you will go through cutting mats a little bit more frequently. I recommend that when you start having problems with layers not cutting, that if you can't move your mat or reposition it, or you can't flip it over anymore, like you can't, there's like no way that you can cut with it where it cuts cleanly, replace the mat. Okay? Use it until you can't, is what the value that I espouse on that. Okay? Use it until you can't. This cutting plastic, this Accuquilt Studio plastic, this is my original. I've never replaced it. I've never ordered a second one. I've never done anything different. This is my original. And I've had this cutter over 7 years. And there's been some projects that I've used it very heavily on, and some projects that, just didn't require as much. So, part of it is going to be determined by how much you use it, like how often you cut with it. But I haven't replaced it yet, and I cut 2 very detailed quilts last year on this cutter, and I can see where I kind of veered off my mat a little bit, or off the center of my mat a little bit, but it still cuts beautifully. It still cuts absolutely beautifully. Giovanna says I put them in hot water when they warp, then put them under a weight so they straighten up. You can't do that with this acrylic. With the Go Big and Go Baby and Go Big, the regular Go, you can do that with them. You can do some hot water and put them under some weights. But no, you don't want to do that with this acrylic. The acrylic will not take that. What machine do you have there that you're currently cutting with? This is the Accuquilt Studio. This is the commercial grade cutter from Accuquilt. Now, just because it's commercial grade, you don't have to be a commercial quilter. Okay? I was not a commercial quilter when I bought this cutter, and I'm really not even a commercial quilter now. Okay? I do a lot of cutting, but I'm not a commercial quilter. So I don't cut, like I'm not cutting a new quilt every week. I don't have the time to do that. I'm not cutting like 15 quilts a week. I'm just, using it when I have a die that I want to use. And I mainly got the Studio Cutter because any die that Accuquilt puts out, I can cut. So if there is a shape that is only available in Studio, I can cut it. And that's kind of why I was going for the larger cutter, is so that I wouldn't be in a boat of not being able to cut something that I wanted. Alright, so here is my 8 layers and my little triangles that will go into scrap. So here's my 4 layers of light or medium and 4 layers of dark. Okay, so it is that simple, you guys. All you are doing when you are cutting with an Accuquilt cutter, whether it is a studio cutter or any of the other cutters that they have on the market. It's really this simple. Now, I will say this. If you are looking for a studio cutter and the price is not in your budget, keep an eye out for classifieds. The stained glass quilt is finished and just released a video for it. Check it out when you get a chance. I absolutely will, Rob. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great announcement, Rob. You guys, if you have not checked out Quilting in the Man Cave, please check out his channel. He has just finished his stained glass quilt, and he's released a video for it. So my man Rob there over at Quilting in the Man Cave is a fabulous supporter over here at my channel. So please make sure to check him out as well. Let's see. Crystal says I bought a 10-inch square for my Accuquilt and didn't use it for a while and realized afterwards I can't use it in my Accuquilt Go. You should be able to. A 10-inch square you should be able to use in your Accuquilt Go. Laura Lynn, welcome, lady. She says beautiful colors. Thank you. This is going into a baby quilt. I have a new I guess it's a grandniece because it's the daughter of my niece and nephew. So I think it's grandniece. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on the family connections. But yeah. Okay, that's bothering me, Crystal. Let me take a look and let's see. Yes, Rob, thank you. I appreciate it. He says, be sure to give Tammy a thumbs up. Yes, please. All right, let me take a look. The dies for the, I want just a straight, you said it's a 10-inch square. And you're saying that it will not work on your Go cutter. Oh, maybe because the die is 12 inches, I thought. Or is it saying that it's for the Go Big? Is that what the issue is? Oh, Go Big 10.5. And it's 10 inch and 9.5 inch finished. And it does not work with the Go, does it? Okay. Let's see, details. Go Big cutting mat. Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's rough. That is so rough. It works on the Go Big electric. Gotcha. Yeah. That's absolutely rough. That I don't like that it's not always very clear. I think they really should have gone with separate names for different things so that you don't end up with that. I know someone who has a Go Baby, and we were having to go through and literally check every single die that someone was selling at a garage sale to see whether or not that die was on the list of approved dies, because we were worried that we were going to get a die that would not work on the Go Baby. So yeah, this thing will cut the studio cutter will cut anything Go Big, Go Baby. It will cut all of that plus a whole lot more. So, all right, so that's all I'm going to cut right now. I'm not going to cut the whole stack of everything, okay? I'm going to set this out of the way, and I'm going to fold up the arms, okay? So, if you don't want to pick up and lift your studio cutter, you can just lift up the arm, and it does get it out of your way. All right, so these are my scraps from these cuttings. So I do have some triangles, and I have some other pieces. So I'll trim off the pieces I can't use, and those will go into stuffing. And then the pieces that I can will go into it will go into my scrap bin. Laura Lynn says that she loves her Studio 2 cutter. I love mine too. Can you tell us why you chose the Studio cutter? Why you chose to get the Studio 2? What was your reasoning, Laura Lynn? that may help some of our viewers who might be deciding as to whether or not that would match what they want to do. So would love the machine to cut materials when I need it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole reason that I went with the Studio. I wanted to be able to cut anything, and then I wanted to be able to special order. With the Studio, they do let you special order your dies. So if you wanted to special order a die specifically for something, then you absolutely could do that. All right, so I don't have the other die, I don't have the other fabrics cut, so I'm going to use this same fabric for the whole thing, okay? So I don't want you guys to panic. This is going to be the same fabric for the whole thing. But when you do this, when we do this later, because this is just step one, this is just cutting today. It was a surprise gift from Pop. Wish I had this great answer for you. That is still a great answer. So Pop decided to get it for her, is the answer. There is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So, actually, you know what? This is going to go... Yeah, it's going... Hang on. Let me get my other pieces. All right. This does kind of go together like a puzzle. Okay? I'm going to separate these out so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay. So you're going to have 2 chisels of one set. These are going to be a different set. These are going to be your other colors. I just haven't cut any of the other colors. Okay. And then what we're going to do, and what I did originally on the other baby quilts is this navy is the one that goes in the middle. So the navy with the gold print, the gold speckles on it, is what's going to go in the center of the quilt. I can't get them separated, you guys. One-handed. One-handed. All right. There we go. All right. So now you guys are kind of seeing how this pattern emerges. So my other navy is going to go out here and is going to go with these triangles, or go with these chisels. And this is the one with the silver print, the silver speckles. Okay? So this is what we're going to be assembling when we start in on this project in 1 week. So let me I'm going to change that one out for one that's pressed a little bit better so it doesn't flip up on us. All right, so this is the basic gist of what we're going to be assembling. Okay, this is the full layout of what we're going to be assembling. Okay, so you're going to be assembling a chisel to a triangle, a chisel to a triangle, and we're just going to assemble all the chisels to the triangles. That is all we're going to be doing next week, is assembling the chisels, and then I'm going to show you how to press everything and put it in the right order, and then on the last one we're going to show how to do the full assembly. Okay, so this is an incredibly simple pattern, and so when I issue out the purchase pattern, like I said, I think I can make it just $1. That's my goal. My goal is $1. I will issue it out with the actual sizes so you guys can actually cut these actual sizes at home. I will issue out a free version that is not these actual sizes. It'll be slightly different. It'll be smaller. It'll be using 2.5-inch strips. So you can cut this, in a different size. Laura Lynn says, those colors pop, lovely choice. They're not actually my choice. Baby mama chose coral and navy for the last baby, and coral and navy again for this baby. So we're sticking with the coral and navy theme for the baby. And to me, it kind of looks a little orange. This quilt will actually probably look more coral than the middle sister's quilt. I think hers looks a little bit more orange to me, but this looks a little bit more coral. So this set will actually be the other fabrics that will come in here, and this set will be these fabrics. Okay, so you get quite a bit of bang for your buck with all of these cuts. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these chisels that came out of the one cut, and so you can get, out of a 7-inch cut, you can get 10 4-inch cuts out of your strip. So this is only 4 of them. This is not even one 7-inch strip of fabric, and you're getting this block out of this. So there's a lot. You get a lot of these out of your cuts. So it does. If you cut it by hand, you can conserve a lot of fabric. But if you want to cut it with the accuracy of an Accuquilt, you definitely can do that as well. The other thing that I love about Accuquilt, when I showed you guys earlier that these triangles are already, the dog ears are already cut, one thing I didn't show you is that the dog ears are already cut on the chisels as well. Okay? So when you go to lay your triangles on top, sorry, I can't get it in front of the camera. There we go. When you cut your triangles, you have both dog ears already cut. So your triangle lays directly on your chisel, and you're not having to worry about the triangle piece not lining up, because all it can do is line up. Okay? That's the reason to buy, if you want to buy a studio cutter or a big cutter or Go Baby or Accuquilt Go Cutter, this is the reason to buy it, is because when you put the pieces together, they come together beautifully. Now granted, they don't have every design in all the cutters, but yeah, that's why you do it. And Laura says, I'm loving that quilt behind you. Thank you. This is the original. This is my original one. This is the original Bauble Quilt that I designed. I designed it for Northcott. I was entering a challenge with Northcott, and so I had to use their fabrics, and then I have just recreated this quilt multiple times. The pattern, my pattern is called Bauble. It is the Bauble Quilt, B-A-U-B-L-E. Bauble like a Christmas bauble that hangs on the tree, the little bells and baubles that you see hanging around. The cutting die set is the chisel set, and this is the Studio Chisel 50148 and 50149. It is a 2-piece set. As of today, when I just checked Accuquilt's website during this live, it was $110 for the cutting set for this. Okay, I'm not going to make you go buy it. Okay, you will get a free pattern. I told you guys you're getting a free pattern in September. So you guys are getting a pattern for this either way. You will get a pattern with altered instructions for cutting it by hand. So you can cut it with a rotary cutter. You will get instructions for that. Let's see, last question for you. Do dies come with it to get you cutting? Not with the Studio Cutter. Not with the Studio Cutter. You can typically, if you're going to get like the Go or the Go Big, the Accuquilt typically does package dies with them. Now, some quilt shops also will package dies with their cutters, trying to get you to buy the die set. So you might get a discount or a deal buying the die and the die set together. One thing that I always recommend when you are looking at a big ticket purchase, especially whether that is a roll of batting, whether that is a sewing machine, whether that is a cutting machine, whether that is like some kind of bundle of some sort, start keeping an eye out for Black Friday sales. Okay, I used to work in retail, and I know that we definitely appreciate the sales year round. Okay, so quilt shops are going to appreciate the sales year round. So if money's not an option, like money's not an issue, buy it whenever you want to buy it. If money is an issue and you do need to conserve funds, take advantage of Black Friday discounts. You definitely want to shop around, see who is offering a discount, who's offering a sale. been a lot of chatter about a lot of quilt shops that are closing and things like that. At least here in my state, we've had 3 or 4 quilt shops close in the last year. We've got a couple more that are coming up and closing soon. I always check at a quilt shop that is closing for things like this that I want. I mean, I've got things on my wish list that have been on my wish list for 2+ years because I haven't found a deal that puts it in my budget, but I always keep an eye out for it. So Facebook Marketplace, you know, I don't typically look at Craigslist. Craigslist is not big here in Wyoming. But, you know, you can check places like that in addition to checking with your local or your favorite quilt shops, and giving them the business as well. But I don't know that many quilt shops will have the studio cutter in stock. Most of them have like the Go or the Go Big. They don't typically sell the studio because they want you to come in and buy at their shop, which I don't blame them. And this is not usually in a lot of people's budget. It was when I was working. I could put money into my quilting stuff, and that's part of the reason I have Bernina, is at the time that I bought a lot of my things for my studio, I was working, and I was making good money when I was working. But now that I'm not, I do have to do the budget shopping. So I don't discourage you from doing budget shopping and looking for like Black Friday deals or maybe Veterans Day deals. A lot of places will do Veterans Day specials as well. So, and you may not have to be a veteran to qualify for some of those discounts. It may just be, hey, we want to celebrate Veterans Day. So keep an eye out for things like that. And this is also something that if you are, especially with us coming up on Christmas, oh gosh, she says there's not a local quilt shop near me that even offers it. Closest one is Chattanooga. I understand. Believe me, I do. My local quilt shop does not have even the Accuquilt. They don't have the Go. They don't have the Go Baby. They don't have the Go Big. They don't have any of them. And I don't know that any of my local quilt shops have them. I think I would have to probably go to Joann's, which is 2.5 hours from here, to go to the closest place that might have one that might be in stock. And I'd have to have them hold it. You know, it's one of those. I totally understand. So a lot of my things are ordered too. But when you are looking as well, if you're looking for Christmas presents or things like that, you can always go, hey, you know, family, friends, whoever, if you guys are wanting to get me something, I'm looking at a big ticket purchase. Can you guys get me a gift card to XYZ? Whether it's to Accuquilt, you know, maybe somebody gives you, you know, 100 here, 100 there. Like, it takes a lot off of what you have to buy. And that's a really good way to do it too. So if you are looking, if you're now jealous and you want one of these, you know, make it a smart choice for yourself. If you're going to invest the money, make it a smart choice. If it's something that you think you would use, or you would use often enough to warrant it, then invest in it. If it's not something you're going to use often enough, then, you know, bypass it. I'm going to issue a free pattern that you can use, whether or not you have this die or whether or not you have this cutter. So I'm going to issue a free version. It's going to be a slightly different size because that's what I have to do. And then I will issue a purchase version of the pattern that is the correct size. Again, I'm only going to charge $1. I'm not going to charge outrageous amounts of money. I know that's not in everybody's budget. And I told you guys I was issuing you a free pattern, so you guys will get a free version of this. It's not going to be this exact size that's free, but you guys will get a free version, okay? All right, so first and foremost, the prep work is done for almost all of it. All I've got to do is take the rest of my 7-inch strips of my fabrics, cut them down to 4-inch strips, and then start feeding them through. And then I got to take the rest of my 4-inch strips for my navy colors and feed those through. And that's where we're going to pick up next week. What do you guys think? You guys like this project? Do you think it's cute? You think it's fun? Are you excited even for the free version or excited for the purchase version? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? And I will issue out sizes as well, so you guys can look at the sizes of the finished quilts when we do the last lesson. I will have the sizes out so that way you guys can make a decision whether you want the free or you want the purchase version based off of what size you want to be able to complete. Helen is giving me thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know a lot of people are going to pick this up on the replay, but this is really all we have for today. It is just cut your pieces large enough to lay over your die, feed it through the machine, let the machine do the cutting. The other cutting instructions I will absolutely have in the pattern, so do not panic. I'm not expecting you to quilt math. I'm not throwing you guys in the deep end. You don't have to quilt math for yourselves. I will do that for you. That is part of my job. So I will quilt math for you, so you guys will have the information you guys need in order to make it look like that. Everybody's excited. Thank you guys. Thank you. And thank you for being here for the live. I know this is kind of taking a chunk out of everybody's day. So next week we will meet again Thursday morning at 10 a.m. for the Bauble Quilt Class 2. This one is labeled Retake because I had a tech issue this morning, and I had to cancel the live and redo it. So we will get the Class 3 rescheduled because this was supposed to be Class 3 and I just kind of stole it. So if you want to go ahead and make sure you catch next week, make sure to go hit the notifications button on that video. Give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you are watching this on the replay, if you want to leave me a comment, absolutely do so. I love getting comments. I love coming back and seeing what everybody has had to say. And you do not have to be a subscriber for my free videos. So for the classes, you can chat whether or not you're a subscriber. You do not have to subscribe for the classes. But if you do want to support my channel, please hit that subscribe button, get the notifications so you guys know when I go live. Most of my videos are lives. It's just a lot easier format for me to handle. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. If you are going to hang out with me as well, you are also welcome Saturday morning. We have a Saturday morning edition. And then we have Sunday after sunset this weekend as well. So 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time Saturday morning. I will see you guys here. I will also see you guys 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time Sunday night. And then our normal live on Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So I will see you guys